Good morning, children, and welcome to the class of English. Children, today I'm going to give you the detailed explanation of the chapter Silk Road by Nick Middleton. This explanation will continue in next two videos, including this one. So, children, let's begin. First of all, let's study these expressions which are given over here. So first expression is ducking back. So children, ducking back means moving back quickly and then coming out. Means going down and then coming up. Next word is children, maneuvers. Maneuvers means skillful movement. Means movement which is very skillful. Next word is billowed. Billowed means rose and moved in a large mass. Next is swathe. Swathe is a large strip or area. Cairn of rocks, it means a pile of stones which mark a special place, such as a place where somebody is buried. Hindi generally we say kabr. Career down means hurtled or moved down very quickly, especially in an uncontrolled way. Salt flats. Actually, they are areas of low flat land, especially near water. And salt flats, if we talk about Himalayas, there are also salt grounds. You would worry, children, why this is possible. How come this is possible that there are salt flats in Himalayas? Although I have just told you that salt flats are found near water bodies or oceans because they contain salt. So I think you might be knowing, children, that where today now we have Himalayas, millions and billions of years back, there was an ocean named Tethys. And due to the continental movement, the Australian landmass shifted towards the Asian, and the tectonic plates of Australian plate landmass pushed the Asian landmass, due to which there was the eruption of Himalayas. That's why Himalayas are also known as fold mountains. So children, now let's begin with the studies of the chapter. A flawless half moon floated in a perfect blue sky. On the morning we said our goodbyes. Extended banks of cloud like long French gloves glowed pink as the sun emerged to splash the distant mountain tops with a rose tinted blush. Now that we are leaving Rabu, Lamu said, she wanted to give me a farewell present. One evening I told her that through Daniel that I was heading towards Mount Kailash to complete the Kora. Children, Kora I have already explained to you. One round the Mount Kailash, which is considered as religious. And she had said that I ought to get some warmer clothes. After ducking back into her tent, she emerged carrying one of the long-sleeved sheepskin coats that all the men wore. Seaton sized me up as we clambered onto his car. Ah yes, he declared, Drogba, sir. So children, this article gives an account of a journey from gently rolling hills of Ravu to Mount Kailash. The purpose of this journey was religious. The narrator wanted to complete the Kora at Mount Kailash. So a local resident, Lahamo, gave a farewell present to Nick Middleton, and that was what? A coat. And that is what is a long sleeved sheepskin coat that all the men used to wear there. And then when Seaton dressed up Nick Middleton, he commented like, Drogba, sir. It means Nick was looking like a Drogba. Drogba means a shepherd. We took a shortcut to get off the Changtang. Seaton knew a route that would take the southwest, almost directly towards Mount Kailas. It involved crossing several fairly high mountain passes, he said. But no problem, sir, he assured us. If there is no snow, what was the likelihood of that? I asked. Not knowing, sir, until we get there. The children, the narrator then Seaton took a shortcut to get off from Changtang, and this route would take them southwest and almost directly towards Mount Kailas. It involved crossing fairly high mountains passes. And Seaton said that there would be no problem if there was no snow, and only problem was the snow. From the gently rolling hills of Ravu, as they were going to leave Ravu, where author stayed, the shortcut took us across vast open plains with nothing in them except a few gazelles. Gazelles, I told you children, in word meanings, a species of deer that would take up from nibbling the arid pastures and frown before bounding away into the void. Further on, where the plains became more stony than grassy, a great herd of wild ass came into view. Seaton told us we were approaching them long before they appeared. Kyan, he said, pointing towards a far-off pall of dust. Where we drew near, I could see the herd galloping in mass, wheeling and turning in tight formation as if they were practicing maneuvers on some predetermined course. Plumes of dust blew into the crisp, clean air. So, children, the shortcut took them across vast plains having arid pastures. So, they were grazing grounds and they were arid. They saw a few gazelles and a great herd of wild asses. And they also noticed the clouds of dust rising in the sky. As hills started to push up once more from the rocky wilderness, we passed solitary drogbas tending their flocks. Sometimes men, sometimes women. These well-wrapped figures would pause and stare at our car, occasionally waving as we passed. When the track took us close to their animals, the sheep would take evasive action, weeding away from the speeding vehicle. We passed nomads, dark tents, pitched in splendid isolation, usually with a huge black dog, a Tibetan mastiff, standing guard. These beasts would cock their great big heads when they became aware of our approach and fix us in their sights. As we continued to draw closer, they would explode into action, speeding directly towards us like a bullet from a gun, and nearly as fast. These saggy monsters, blacker than the darkest night, usually wore bright red collars and barked furiously with massive jaws. They were completely fearless of our vehicle, shooting straight into our path, causing Seaton to brake and swerve. So, children, as hills came once again, they passed the shepherds tending over the flocks. These men or women, they were well dressed in warm clothes. They would pause and stare at the car, and sometimes they would wave also. Sometimes they would wave as the car passed near them. They would pause and stare at the car. When the track took the car close to the sheep, the animals would try to avoid the speeding vehicle by dodging to one side. After that, the narrator and Seaton passed the dark tents of the nomads in lonely places. There was a huge black dog, a Tibetan mastiff, which I have already explained to you in the previous video. And I've told you that it's a very heavy dog and with great mass of hair. He would stand guard outside. These dogs raised their big heads erect and watched the narrator's car. And as the car came closer, they would start barking, and they ran towards their car. The dogs were completely fearless of their vehicle. Seaton had to apply brake and turn aside because they used to follow the car. The dog would make chase for 100 meters or so before easing off, having seen us off the property. It wasn't difficult to understand why ferocious Tibetan Mastiffs became popular in China's imperial courts as hunting dogs, brought along the Silk Road in ancient times as tribute from Tibet. By now we could see snow-capped mountains gathering on the horizon. We entered a valley where the river was wide and mostly clogged with ice, brilliant white and glinting in the sunshine. The trail hugged its bank, twisting with the meanders as we gradually gained height and the valley sides closed in. The turns became sharper and right bumpier, Seaton now in third gear as we continued to climb. The track moved away from the icy river, laboring through steeper slopes that spotted big rocks daubed with patches of bright orange lichen. Beneath the rocks, hunks of snow clung on in the near permanent shade. I felt the pressure building up in my ears, held my nose, snorted and cleared them. We struggled round another tight bend and Seaton stopped. He had opened his door and jumped out of the seat. Before I realized what was going on, snow, said Daniel as he too exited the vehicle, letting in a breath of cold air as he did so. Now, children, then they entered a valley, and the snow capped mountains were visible on the horizon. The river in the valley was wide and mostly blocked with ice, means the ice line had started. The track kept close to the river bank and twisted with the curved banks, and gradually they gained height. And the valley side closed. They were, climbing up the hill. The turns became sharper and the rides bumpier. Seaton drove in the third gear, and the narrator felt the pressure building up in his ears. He held his nose, snorted, and cleaned it. And they struggled round another tight bend. Seaton stopped. He opened his door and jumped. Daniel too left the vehicle. A swathe of white stuff lay across the track in front of us, stretching for maybe 15 meters before it pattered out and the dirt trail reappeared. The snow continued on the other side of us, smoothing the abrupt bank on the upslope side. The bank was too steep for our vehicle to scale, so there was no way around the snow patch. I joined Daniel as Seaton stepped onto the encrusted stone and began to slither and slide forward, stamping his foot from time to time to ascertain how steady it was. I looked at my wristwatch. We were at 5,210 meters above sea level. The snow don't look too deep to me, but the danger wasn't its depth. Daniel said, so much as its icy top layer. If we slip off, the car could turn over. He suggested as we saw Seaton grab handfuls of dust and fling them across the frozen surface. We both pitched in, and when the snow was spread with soil, Daniel and I steered out of the vehicle to lighten Seaton's load. He backed up and drove towards the dirty snow, eased the car on its icy surface, and slowly drove its length without apparent difficulty. So, children, the ride had already gone and turned out sharper and bumpier. Seaton was driving the third gear. Nater felt the pressure building up in his ears. It means the altitude sickness. He held his nose and snorted and cleaned them. And as they moved little forward, they struggled round another tight bend. Seaton stopped the car. He opened his door and jumped out, and Daniel too left the vehicle because there was snow on the track. It stretched for about 15 meters, and then it became smaller and the dirt trail reappeared. There was no way around the snow patch, as there was snow on either side. Moreover, the bank was too deep and too steep for their vehicle to scale. They were at 5,210 meters above sea level. So what Seaton did, he grabbed some handful of dirt, he flung them across the icy top layer. The narrator and Daniel joined him and threw dirt on the snow. So because the surface of snow is frictionless, so to create friction, they threw dirt so that the jeep could move easily. Then Seaton drove the car slowly and carefully on the icy surface. Daniel and the narrator stayed out of the vehicle to lighten Seaton's load, and 10 minutes later, what happened? We stopped at another blockage. Not good, so Seaton announced as he jumped out again to survey the scene. This time he decided to try and drive around the snow. The slope was steep and studded with major rocks, but somehow Seaton negotiated them, his four-wheel drive vehicle lurching from one obstacle to the next. In so doing, he cut off one of the hairpin bends, regarding the trail further, up where the snow had not drifted. I checked my watch again. As we continued to climb in the bright sunshine, we crept past 5,400 meters and my head began to throb horribly. I took gulps from my water bottle, which is supposed to help a rapid ascent. We finally reached the top of pass at 5,515 meters. It was marked by a large cairn of rocks, festooned with white silk scarves and ragged prayer flags. We all took a turn down the cairn in a clockwise direction, as is the tradition, and Seaton checked the tires on his vehicle. He stopped at the petrol tank and partially unscrewed the top, which emitted a loud hiss. The lower atmospheric pressure was allowing the fuel to expand. It sounded dangerous to me. Maybe, sir. Seaton laughed, but no smoking. Children, it was now difficult for the author, Daniel, and Seaton to drive the car because there was ice at one turn. Although they just crossed it, but just 10 minutes later, they stopped at another blockage. And this time, Seaton decided to try and drive around the snow. The slope was steep and full of big rocks. Somehow, Seaton got past over the difficult route. Once he cut a very sharp bend, they continued to climb in the bright sunshine. And slowly, they crossed another blockage. Now they were at the height of 5,400 meters. The narrator's head began to beat horribly. He took gulps of water from the water bottle, and finally they reached the top of the pass at 5,515 meters. There was a large cairn of rocks. Cairn of rocks, children, I explained to you. Qabr. It was decorated with white silk scarves and ragged prayer flags. It means that place was habited by some Tibetan monks. They took a turn round the cairn in clockwise direction. The lower atmospheric pressure was allowing the fuel to expand, and the engine sounded hissing. And the narrator felt a little fear. And then Seaton advised him, kindly don't smoke. My headache soon cleared as we careered down the other side of the pass. It was 2 o'clock by the time we stopped for lunch. We ate hot noodles inside a long canvas tent, part of a work camp erected beside in a dark, dry salt lake. The plateau is pockmarked with salt flats and brackish lakes, vestiges of the Tethys Ocean, which border the Tibet before the great continental collision that drifted skyward. This one was a hive of activity. Men with pickaxes and shovels trudging back and forth in their long sheepskin coats and salt-encrusted boots, all wore sunglasses against the glare as a steady stream of blue trucks emerged from the blindingly white lake laden with piles of salt. By late afternoon, we had reached a small town of Hor, back on the main east-west highway that followed the old trade route from Lhasa to Kashmir. Daniel, who was returning to Lhasa, found a ride in a truck, so Seaton and I bade him farewell outside a tyre repair shop. We had suffered two punctures in quick succession on the drive down from the Salt Lake, and Seaton was eager to have them fixed, since they left him with no spares. Besides, the second tire he had changed had been replaced by one that was as smooth as my bald head. Hor was a grim, miserable place. There was no vegetation whatsoever, just dust and rocks, liberally scattered with years of accumulated refuse, which was unfortunate, given that town sat on the shore of Lake Mansarovar. Oh, children, as they moved down the other side of the pass, the narrator's headache soon cleared. It was 2 o'clock, and they stopped for lunch. They ate hot noodles inside a long canvas tent. The plateau was pockmarked with salt flats and brackish lakes. There were salt flats and salty lakes. By late afternoon, they had reached the small town of Hor, and they were back on the main east-west highway. It followed the old trade route from Lhasa to Kashmir. Now, from here, Daniel was parting away from Nick Middleton and Seaton because he wanted to go to Lhasa. So he found a ride in a truck to return to Lhasa. And Seaton got the punctured tire repairs because in quick succession, the two tires got punctured on their way. Now, they were on a place called Hor. The narrator found Hor a very grim and miserable place. There was no vegetation, only dust, rocks, and accumulated refuse, children, which the trackers take with them and throw there. So the mountains are also, covered up with the refuse taken by the trackers, those who track the mountains. And instead of bringing those refuse materials down along with them, they throw them there and making the environment polluted. But now, children, the government had decided, wherever trekking takes place, that whatever material, means the baggages of the trekkers are checked, that whatever material they are carrying and eatable, usable materials, so when they return, again those materials are checked, whether they are carrying them along with them or have they either thrown them on the way. So if the material is not equal as they had carried up, so they are fined. So that's why trekkers have now also become, conscious towards the environment. So children, that's all in this part of the video. The final explanation will continue in next video. Till then, thank you.